This video will provide a high-level overview of the shifts in the math standards. The Louisiana mathematics standards were created by over 100 Louisiana educators with input from thousands of parents and teachers from across the state. Educators envision what mathematically proficient students should know and be able to do to compete in our society and focus their efforts on creating standards that would allow them to do so. These standards provide appropriate content for all grades or courses, maintain high expectations, and create a logical connection of content across and within grades. The K-12 mathematics standards lay the foundation that allows students to become mathematically proficient by focusing on 3 shifts, which are focus, coherence, and rigor. The first shift in the standards is focus. Rather than racing to cover topics in a mile-wide, inch-deep approach, the standards require us to significantly narrow and deepen the way time and energy are spent in the classroom to ensure students gain strong foundations. Not all content in a given grade is emphasized equally in the standards. Some clusters require greater emphasis than others, based on the depth of the ideas, the time that they take to master, or their importance to future mathematics and the demands of college and career readiness. To say that some things have greater emphasis is not to say that anything in the standards can safely be neglected in instruction. Neglecting material will create unfinished learning that will need to be addressed prior to accessing new content in a later grade. At least 65% and up to 85% of class time should be devoted to the major work of the grade. The major work is the subset of topics that deserve the large majority of instructional time during a given year to best prepare students for college and careers. The Louisiana Student Standards for Mathematics focus documents provide information on which specific standards fall within each cluster. Students should spend the majority of their time on the major work of the grade. So as we see here, addition and subtraction, along with concepts, skills, and problem solving, are the main focus in grades kindergarten through 2nd. For 3rd through 5th grade, the focus is on multiplication and division of whole numbers and fractions, along with concepts, skills, and problem solving. In 6th grade, ratios and proportional relationships should take up the majority of class time, along with early work with expressions and equations. In 7th grade, students continue to focus the majority of their time on ratios and proportional relationships and their work with rational numbers. The focus of the work in 8th grade is linear algebra and linear functions. The second shift is coherence. Standards are designed in a coherent fashion that allows students to progressively build upon their knowledge from grade to grade. This coherence allows for intentional connections to be built across grade levels. Each standard is not a new event, but an extension of previous learning. The coherence in the standards refers to the intentionality with which the standards and domains were developed and meant to be delivered. The standards and domains are all interconnected and should be presented to students in a way that allows them to see those connections. In mathematics, much new learning is about extending knowledge from prior learning to new situations. For this reason, teachers need to understand the progressions in the standards so they can see where individual students and groups of students are coming from and where they are headed. Each standard is not a new event, but an extension of previous learning. The coherence that is embedded within the standards provides teachers with an explicit pathway to the development of student mathematical understanding. Coherence is about connections that make sense of mathematics for students. Acceleration capitalizes on this structure provided by coherence to activate readiness for students. In other words, educators can leverage the coherence that exists within the standards to provide their students with targeted and focused supports and scaffolds. The LDOE Learning Acceleration Guidance documents are reference guides for teachers to identify specific prerequisite and co-requisite standards in alignment with the coherence of the grade level standards. These guides can be found on the Louisiana Believes site on the K-12 Math Planning page. Prerequisite and co-requisite standards are also listed on the LDOE's companion documents for each grade level. These resources serve as guidance for teachers regarding the progression of mathematical understanding for students. The third shift in the standards is rigor. There are three components of rigor: conceptual understanding, procedural skill and fluency, and application. Rigor is like a three-legged stool. If any of the legs are missing or weak, the stool will fall. The standards set high expectations for all three components of rigor in the major work of each grade, which is why teachers should target each aspect of rigor with equal intensity over the course of the school year. Rigorous teaching in mathematics does not simply mean increasing the difficulty or complexity of problems. Incorporating rigor into classroom instruction and student learning means exploring at a greater depth the standards and ideas with which students will be grappling. Conceptual understanding refers to understanding mathematical concepts, operations, and relations. It is more than knowing isolated facts and methods. Students should be able to make sense of why a mathematical idea is important and the kinds of contexts in which it is useful. It also allows students to connect prior knowledge to new ideas and concepts. Procedural skill and fluency is the ability to apply procedures accurately, efficiently, and flexibly. It requires speed and accuracy in calculation while giving students opportunities to practice basic skills. Students' ability to solve more complex application tasks is dependent upon procedural skill and fluency. Application provides valuable context for learning and the opportunity to solve problems in relevant and meaningful ways. It is through real-world application that students learn to select an efficient method to find a solution, determine whether the solutions make sense, and develop critical thinking skills. In the Louisiana Student Standards for Mathematics, each grade standard is aligned to one or more component of rigor, meaning that each standard aims to promote student growth in conceptual understanding, procedural skill and fluency, and/or application. The department has created Louisiana Student Standards for Mathematics Guides to Rigor as a resource for teachers to use when determining which component or components of rigor align with each standard. Keywords and phrases in the standards indicate which component of rigor the standard is targeting. Conceptual understanding standards often use terms like understand, recognize, or interpret. Procedural skill and fluency standards tend to use words like fluently, find, or solve. And application standards typically use phrases like word problems or real-world problems. Keywords and phrases are underlined in each standard to help clarify the identified component of rigor for each standard. The LSSM rigor documents on the Louisiana Department of Education's Math K-12 planning page houses the rigor docs that outline the specific rigor components for each standard. While this document will help teachers identify the explicit component of rigor as called for by the Louisiana Student Standards for Mathematics, it is up to the teacher to ensure his or her instruction aligns to the expectations of the standards, allowing for proper development of rigor in the classroom. This concludes our high-level overview of the three shifts in the math standards. If you have any questions about the shifts in the standards or how to access these documents, please reach out to stem@la.gov.